Now, in the 1964 congressional elections, the voters gave Johnson the most liberal Congress in American history, President Lyndon Johnson. And this best explains why President Johnson was able to enact a sweeping program of reform legislation in 1965 and 66. It was known as the Great Society. It was known as the War on Poverty. So get to understand, students, that this war on poverty that was brought about by Johnson's administration, now there's a war on that poverty by the Republican administrations who want to cut back everything. And they want to just go back to before the 1960s when everybody was in their place. But this war on poverty is important. Quantifiable evidence indicates that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 caused a dramatic increase in the proportion of African Americans who were registered to vote and Mexican Americans. The Immigration Act of 1965 ended racially based immigration quotas. That's why the Immigration Act all falls within this rubric of the war on poverty. Many of the laws that were part of Johnson's war on poverty primarily focused on improving opportunities for the nation's poor. So we got the Medicare program. It was enacted in 1965, and it provided insurance against medical and hospital bills for the elderly. You see right now the right wants to attack Medicare, but for what? It's been one of the most successful programs for the elderly. The war on poverty directly attacked housing. It attacked health and nutritional problems of the poor. There's this groundswell of support. And as a result of the war on poverty, the number of elderly Americans living in poverty declined dramatically. However, the war on poverty did not give sufficient attention to poverty in female-headed households. So despite all of these positive changes that were coming in Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty, nothing could stop white supremacist terrorism and their influence on conservative America. If you would go to up and down California and understand and appreciate what was occurring in the black communities, white people didn't care. White people didn't care at all about what's going on. Oh, the blacks are complaining again. The Mexicans are complaining again. That's all they did. You know, when they were listening to the Black Power movement or the Chicano Power movement that was going on out there, they could care less. Just like today in the immigrant rights community, how many people do you know could care less about what immigrants are living, how they're living, and what civil rights that they want? And despite these obstacles, movements for change continued, and they became more militant. Blacks, Chicanos, American Indians, they rebelled throughout the country. And then the women joined in, and then the gays will join in, and then the handicapped will join in. Get to figure it, get to know it. And they had demanded an end to prejudice. They demanded an end to discrimination, to segregation, or as in South Africa was known as apartheid. And then most importantly in Latin America, as you all are reading in your textbooks under Gonzalez, in Latin America there was a rise of the third world, especially in the creation of new African nations, and then the revolution springing up in Latin America that lent credence to this new militancy. So the issues of social control were demonstrated by the threat of violence and the use of violence. And blacks, Chicanos, and Native peoples challenged past practices of economic marginalization, of what we learned at the very beginning of the racialization process, students, of political disfranchisement, of social discrimination, of educational deprivation. And there was a 1964 race riot in Harlem that was triggered by the shooting of a black teenager by a white police officer. And the underlying reason for the Watts riots of 1965 right here in Los Angeles is African Americans were frustrated and angry over their joblessness and lack of opportunity. The Kerner Report issued in 1968 by the National Advisory on the Commission on Civil Disorders blamed the urban riots of the mid to late 1960s on white racism within American society. After Malcolm X's assassination, Stokely Carmichael, in his 1996 call for black power, argued that to be truly free from white oppression, African Americans must elect black candidates, organize their own schools, and control their own institutions. In response to the concept of black power, groups such as the Committee on Racial Equality, known as CORE, and SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, began to purge whites from their membership roles. Let's go back to making sense of the 60s and appreciate the black experience.